Chapter 21. Stumbling upon an SSR. After nearly 4 days of monotonous sailing, Figo returned to the Navy headquarters. This was also his first time arriving at Marineford. As soon as the crescent-shaped island appeared on the horizon, Figo stepped onto the deck to look, alerted by the sailors. The island, shaped like a crescent moon, had layered buildings built against the hills. The symbols representing the vast ocean's blue color and the emblem of the dove, a symbol of peace, were prominently visible from afar. The most striking were the 2 large characters Navy on the buildings. Just like in the anime, it seemed the Navy headquarters didn't frequently relocate. At least, for the past 100 years, they hadn't encountered a situation requiring them to move. As the warship gradually approached the dock, Figo noticed another warship also heading towards the headquarters from the other side of the crescent island. Compared to the ship he was on, the opposite warship was significantly larger, about twice the size, with large caliber cannons on both sides, symbolizing immense power. "That looks like Rear Admiral Mia's ship," a sailor exclaimed. "Really? Is it really her?" "It is. We're so lucky. Will we get to see Rear Admiral Mia?" One sailor after another rushed to the deck, excitedly looking towards the approaching warship. Figo scratched his head. Mia? The name sounded somewhat familiar. His previous self should have known it. He searched through his memories. Oh, the Navy's flower. The most beautiful, at least the most stunning female officer in the entire Navy headquarters, reaching the rank of captain at 22. However, this flower was now 30 years old and had been promoted to Rear Admiral. She was still immensely popular. Seeing the excited sailors, Figo waved his arm. "Men! Bring the ship closer." The sailors were momentarily stunned and then exclaimed, "Sir Figo, is that all right? Who do you think I am?" Figo laughed. "I'll take responsibility if there's any problem." "Yes, sir." The sailors responded enthusiastically. They adjusted the helm, and the warship's course shifted slightly, slowing down as it neared the other ship. Perhaps hearing the commotion, a female officer in a Rear Admiral's uniform emerged from the cabin of the other warship. She had a height of about 1.9 meters, fair skin, a beautiful face, and long legs. Her black bangs hung diagonally across her forehead with 2 strands slightly sticking out, giving her a playful look. She didn't look like a 30-year-old woman at all, more like a young girl. However, her neat uniform and brisk steps added a touch of heroic charm to her appearance. She stood out, an elegant figure with a youthful face, far outshining the nun. No wonder she was so popular. She looked towards them curiously and, upon seeing Figo standing at the bow, seemed slightly surprised. "Are you Figo?" They weren't well acquainted but recognized each other. Otherwise, Figo wouldn't have steered the ship closer for no reason. In his previous self's memory, they had both been standout recruits in the training camp, training together in the elite camp. But while Mia remained outstanding, his previous self had been among the bottom few, so they hadn't spoken much. Fortunately, his past self hadn't left any memories of youthful infatuation or secret admiration, allowing Figo to naturally reintroduce himself to Mia and take the first step towards reacquainting with his previous social circle. "Long time no see, Mia." Figo waved and greeted. Mia smiled slightly. "It really is you. It has been many years." Her words were abruptly interrupted by a strange wave of energy emanating from Mia's warship. It was difficult to describe the feeling, like being stared at by the most evil wolf, looked down upon by a higher being, and crushed by the aura of a strong presence. Figo's observation Haki sensed an unknown pale red aura sweeping over, bringing a strong sense of discomfort. He furrowed his brows and stomped on the deck, causing cracks to drive the discomfort away. "What is this?" Thud. 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 The sound of people collapsing echoed around him as all the sailors, entranced by Mia's beauty, rolled their eyes and dropped their jaws, rendered unconscious by the pale red aura. The sailors on Mia's warship experienced the same fate. Conqueror's Haki. Figo was shocked. Suddenly, there was a loud crash as a large hole was blasted open in the cabin of the opposite warship. A black-haired young man, tightly bound by chains, crashed through the cabin wall, taking his cell with him into the sea. Mia staggered. "This is bad." Even before she finished speaking, Figo had already leaped into the sea. Chains bound the black-haired young man's hands and feet, and he was confined in a cell, naturally unable to free himself or swim. But he didn't seem to intend to escape, as he continuously gulped down seawater, apparently attempting suicide. Figo couldn't let him succeed because he was a captured pirate. He swiftly swam over, pulling the cell out of the water and throwing the prisoner back onto the warship with a strong arm. Mia was pleased and shouted, "Figo, the ship!" Figo had already noticed. With the sailors knocked out by the burst of Conqueror's haki, the two warships had gone out of control, continuing to drift and threatening to collide. He quickly swam back, pushing against one warship with all his might. At the same time, countless white arms sprouted from both ships as they were about to collide, helping Figo separate them. Being known as the Navy's flower wasn't just because Mia was beautiful, it was also due to the devil fruit she had eaten. A fruit Figo was very familiar with, the Hana Hana no Mi. Figo climbed up and leaped onto Mia's ship because the two warships wouldn't collide. "Thank you, Figo. If it weren't for you, he might have succeeded in his suicide attempt," Mia said, inspecting the cell and expressing her gratitude. "No, if it weren't for me steering the ship closer, he wouldn't have had the chance to attempt suicide." Figo shook his head and pointed to the black-haired pirate in the cell, not taking credit. "Was that the legendary Conqueror's haki?" "Probably. I didn't know he possessed such power either." Mia nodded solemnly, looking at the now unconscious prisoner. "No wonder he's the captain of the Crazy Laugh Pirates, Gerald, with a bounty of 630 million berries." "How much?" 630 million berries? Figo had thought he was a new pirate with potential who had just awakened Conqueror's haki. But Mia, how did she capture him? Noticing Figo's confusion, Mia shook her head and explained, "He was recently captured by Admiral Mokar himself. Because Admiral Mokar was pursuing other members of the Crazy Laugh Pirates and to prevent them from rescuing him, he asked me to escort him back. We almost had a mishap." "Captured by an admiral? That figures. Wait a minute. Does jumping into the sea to rescue him count as stopping an escape attempt? Did I just participate in a capture?" Figo suddenly felt a surge of excitement. The beautiful Rear Admiral was still introducing the Crazy Laugh Pirates, her voice pleasant, but Figo was not in the mood to hear her chatter. This pirate might be. The prison files materialized in his mind, flipping to a blank page and imprinting the image of the black-haired young man. Criminal, Gerald. Level, SSR1. Status, incarcerated. Crime Index, 25. Capture participation, 35%. Selectable rewards, 5 out of 1 merchant, swordsmanship, cook, childcare, navigation. Event 1, activatable. Event 2, not yet activatable. Core event, not yet activatable, complete all character events to activate the core event. Completing the core event allows selecting 3 abilities from the character's ability list. It counted as a capture. How was the 35% participation calculated? No, more importantly, before returning, Figo thought he could not capture an SSR-level criminal anytime soon. Yet today, on this single return trip, through a random encounter, he had stumbled upon an SSR. Chapter 22. Doug and Kong. Figo? Ah, sorry. Figo returned to reality, explaining, "I was thinking about Impel Down. Impel Down has never held such a powerful pirate before. Plus, he possesses Conqueror's haki, which could put significant pressure on the prison. Ginch was already far less capable than him and Caesar. Staying in Impel Down for a few more years, even Ginch found it somewhat challenging to serve as the warden." Mia said, "Yes, Admiral Mokar's orders are to hold him at the headquarters prison first and wait for the marshal's decision. This level of pirate might be executed directly or perhaps used to capture other members of the Crazy Laugh Pirates." As she spoke, she looked up at Figo, taller than her by 2 heads, and said with some emotion, "Speaking of which, these past 8 years. Figo, what have you been through in Impel Down?" The old Figo was not taller than her. Before Figo could answer, she laughed and said, "Vice Admiral Doug has mentioned you quite often these past few years. Every time you got promoted in Impel Down, he would remark that he was right about you back then." Her smile hinted at amusement, even a bit mischievous, and Figo could sense a touch of teasing. The name Vice Admiral Doug was one Figo heard frequently. Doug was the creator of Tekai, Kami-e, and Shigen, and he systematized other techniques predecessors had explored, creating the Rokushiki, 6 powers, making his reputation well known. He was also the chief instructor of the Navy's recruit camp and one of the instructors of the elite camp, so Figo could call him a teacher. As Mia smiled, Figo's last memory of Doug resurfaced, which also included Mia. 8 years ago, a young Figo stood quietly outside Vice Admiral Doug's office, listening to the enthusiastic voice from inside. What? Mia, you want to apply for a transfer to the newly established Impel Down? No, absolutely not. You're already a Navy captain at just 22 years old, with limitless potential. Your future should be on the vast sea, fighting strong pirates, not working as some prison guard in an underwater prison. You will become a strong naval officer. You will become a vice admiral, even an admiral, and carve your name into the history of the Navy. I, Doug, firmly believe in this. Soon, the young Mia left Doug's office, looking extremely excited, clenching her fists and pumping them up and down as if cheering herself on. Then it was Figo's turn to go in. You want to transfer to Impel Down too? Lieutenant, if I remember correctly. Figo. Ha ha ha, good for you, truly my student. A real man doesn't necessarily have to aspire to the sea. If everyone longs for the ocean, who would do the work of a jailer? You're not afraid of loneliness and isolation, and you have the courage to go into the deep sea. As your teacher, I am immensely proud of you. You will become a great jailer, leaving your mark on the history of Impel Down. I, Doug, firmly believe in this. Oh, this. Figo couldn't help but laugh. He shook his head, clenched his fists, brought them to his chest, and mimicked the cheering gesture, looking cute. Imitating me. Mia's smile faded a bit, but she wasn't embarrassed. She was just surprised. 8 years apart, you've become much more cheerful, Figo. You never used to joke like this. Back then, it was the effect of the fruit. Vice Admiral Doug always misused his inspirational fruit, but he never had any bad intentions. I know. A 22-year-old female captain transferring to Impel Down was indeed a waste of talent, but a 20-year-old lieutenant with potential could still grow steadily in Impel Down. Thinking about it this way, Vice Admiral Doug's refusals and approvals were reasonable. It was just that because of his inspirational fruit, and his enthusiastic tone encouraging both of them, the overall situation seemed a bit odd. Figo turned and said, Mia, let's continue catching up later. Someone has noticed the anomaly with our 2 warships. Over at headquarters, an officer responsible for guarding the dock had noticed the situation and approached them with a small warship and dozens of Marines. The 2 warships docked. The Marines who had been knocked unconscious by the Conqueror's haki and hadn't woken up were settled. With Mia, Figo escorted the 7 giants, the manipulative demon, the nun, and Gerald to the Navy headquarters prison, which took nearly an hour. Then Figo and Mia climbed the high tower of the Navy headquarters together to meet Marshal Oka. Along the way, he deeply felt how popular Mia was. Fortunately, there wouldn't be any jealous disputes in the world of One Piece, at least in the Navy headquarters. The Marines would just swoon, instantly mastering Kami-e like Sanji, twisting around with heart-shaped eyes, and shouting from afar, Rear Admiral Mia. At most, they'd add, who's that man next to Rear Admiral Mia not wearing a uniform? I'm so jealous. When they reached the top floor, the Marshal's office, they were told, the Marshal has gone to marry Gosa and will be back in 2 days. They came up empty-handed. The Marshal said he'd personally congratulate me for capturing the manipulative demon when I brought him back, Figo thought, but also knew that the Marshal's trip to marry Gosa was likely related to his mission on Hor Island. Who knows what the final outcome will be, and where the 7 giants will go. Do you want to go to Vice Admiral Doug's house together? As they left the headquarters building, Mia suggested, I meant what I said earlier. Vice Admiral Doug has mentioned you often these past few years. And since he's gotten older, Vice Admiral Doug doesn't lead fleets out much anymore. He loves it when we students visit and tell him about our experiences. Capturing a villain like the manipulative demon will surely make him happy. Vice Admiral Doug was already 71 years old. Figo didn't hesitate much, sure. As a transmigrator, he started with the common orphan background, and his family was gone. He hadn't been to his home in the Navy headquarters for 8 years, so it didn't matter if he returned later. The families lived in the rear of the Navy headquarters, and Doug's house, as one of the top vice admirals, was very close to the headquarters. Mia probably visited often and quickly led Figo there, knocking on the door. The door was opened by a sharp-looking boy, about 3 or 4 years old, who lit up when he saw Mia and ran off shouting, Grandpa! Sister Mia is here! And she brought an unfamiliar man. Mia smiled and said to Figo, this is Vice Admiral Doug's grandson, Kong. Figo paused for a moment. Soon, the tall, burly, white-haired elder from his memory walked out, laughing heartily. You're back, Mia. Has the pirate who attacked the celestial dragon been captured? Seeing Figo, he paused, adjusting his glasses. You're Fickler from Impel Down? I see, you've been transferred from Impel Down. How come you're here with Mia? Ha ha ha, welcome, welcome. Mia's expression turned a bit strange. Figo glanced at her and said helplessly, Vice Admiral Doug, I'm Figo. Oh, right, Figo, Figo. Despite his muscular and robust appearance, Vice Admiral Doug had a gentle temperament. Even when he got the name wrong, he apologized to Figo. Sorry. My memory isn't what it used to be. Your name was on the tip of my tongue, but I just said it wrong. It's all right. Figo smiled, glancing at the boy peeking from behind Doug, noting how the elder resembled the future Fleet Admiral Kong. Is this your grandson? It's my first time meeting him. This child looks great, you can tell he'll inherit your strength and spirit, becoming an outstanding Marine, maybe even surpassing you to become an Admiral, or even the Fleet Admiral, leaving his mark in the Navy's history. Figo said passionately. I, Figo, firmly believe in this. Mia burst out laughing. Doug, however, was delighted. Ha ha ha, really? I believe it too. Come in, Mia, Fickler. Chapter 23. Sapphire. Teacher, my name is Figo. Yes, sorry. Leading Figo and Mia to sit on the living room sofa, Doug turned around and brought Kong over, introducing, this is your older brother Figo, another Marine taught by your grandpa. He's amazing, only 28 years old, right? Oka told me he'll soon be promoted to Vice Admiral. Hello, brother Figo. Little Kong was very polite, standing upright and serious. Hello, little Kong, Figo responded thoughtfully, adding, actually, shouldn't you call me uncle? Neither you nor Mia have started a family yet, so calling you brother and sister is fine. Vice Admiral Doug shook his head, signaling Kong to go play in his room. Then he turned to ask Figo about his experiences over the past 8 years in Impel Down. Doug had been quite aware ever since the news of the Fishmen invasion of Impel Down and their capture by Figo reached the headquarters 7 years ago. As Mia said, Doug had been paying attention to this formerly inconspicuous student, but even he hadn't anticipated Figo's rapid growth. Every day, imprisoning and interrogating prisoners must have been dull and tiring. 8 years, Doug sighed, asking again, how did you and Mia end up coming to see me together? Mia, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke up, recounting their encounter at sea and the suicide attempt of the Crazy Laugh Pirates captain, Gerald. So, he was indeed captured. A man with conqueror's haki? Choosing to commit suicide to avoid implicating his crew makes him quite a tough guy. The Crazy Laugh Pirates might have been able to roam freely in the New World, and the Navy usually wouldn't launch a large-scale campaign against them. Why did they go to Sabaody Archipelago and provoke the Celestial Dragons? Was it really because they provoked the Celestial Dragons that they attracted the Admiral? Figo had caught a bit of this conversation when he first entered, but at that time, his attention was on little Kong. Now hearing it again, he showed some curiosity. The crime index of that Crazy Laugh Pirates captain was only 25, which, while still indicating a heinous nature, didn't match his bounty of 640 million berries. Compared to the criminals in Impel Down's 5th and 6th levels, he was almost a good person. Even though he was SSR1, capturing him wouldn't yield more rewards than capturing the nun, let alone with only 35% capture participation. With this in mind, Figo casually selected his reward. Reward, Swordsmanship plus 552? 9,886, Level 3 Iron Cutting Swordsman? As expected, it was only this much. After seeing rewards in the thousands, looking at mere hundreds felt underwhelming. Meanwhile, Mia, hearing Doug's question, sighed lightly and said, on the way back, he told me his story. I don't know if it's true. If it is, I really don't know what to think. As Mia recounted the story, Figo instinctively felt that Gerald's event 1 might be related to this. Character events usually revolved around what a person most wanted to do or some deep-seated obsession. Thus, he listened while activating the character event. Doug listened to the story, Figo watched a movie. A young boy of about 8 or 9, wandering the streets, found an abandoned baby girl in an alley corner. The baby girl was unique, with pure, sapphire-like blue eyes that sparkled in the sunlight. She reached out to him, smiling. The wandering boy hesitated several times but ultimately picked up the baby girl. And thus the story began. Figo, however, was reluctant to watch another little girl, another tragedy. In the world of pirates, tragedies were common. Ultimately, he didn't cut off the scene because Mia was telling the same story. The next part of the scene focused on survival. The wandering boy earned pocket money by fetching water for wealthy families, carrying water in one bucket and the baby girl in the other. The wandering boy collected scrap metal, using an iron pot to make a small cart to carry the baby girl. The boy set up a street stall to sell his junk treasures, and the growing baby girl sat beside him, laughing to attract customers. He had to support not just himself but now 2 people, making life harder but also happier. Every time he saw the baby girl's pure blue eyes and innocent smile, he would smile genuinely as well. Days passed, the boy gradually became a teenager, and the baby girl turned into a little girl. When the girl was 5, their lives suddenly improved. In the scene, the girl pointed to specific trash heaps, and the boy would find valuable items without fail. Born with a powerful Kanbunshoku haki. Thanks to the girl's abilities, their lives improved each day. They bought new clothes and even a small house. The turning point came when the girl was 7. A well-dressed couple found them, tearfully claiming the girl was their lost child. We encountered pirates at the time, and in our panic, we hid her in a corner. When we returned, she was gone. Thank you, young man. If you're willing, we'll also be your parents. From now on, we'll be one family. Their words were sincere, and their emotions genuine. The boy looked at the shy girl, thought about the recent pirate havoc on the island, and considered the girl's confusion about not having parents. With some wariness, he agreed. The 4 formed a new family, and life grew happier and more beautiful each day. 1 month, 2 months, not only for the girl but also for the boy, the couple treated him well, seemingly treating him as their own child. The boy gradually let down his guard. Until one day, after going out, the house was empty. What followed was a frantic search, a boundless quest lasting 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. The boy acquired his first sword and killed his first pirate. With excellent talent, he grew stronger and stronger. At 23, the boy, now resembling the captured Gerald, finally found the couple who had once taken them in. As expected, they were traffickers. They had long targeted the girl with special abilities. The cautious street boy led them to pretend for 3 months, successfully abducting the girl. The 2 trembled under Gerald's blade, confessing everything. Sapphire. Where is Sapphire now? Who did you sell her to? The male trafficker stammered, We took her to the Sabayati archipelago, thinking we'd get a good price. But the damn celestial dragons made an offer, and no one dared compete. We didn't even get much berries. I didn't ask how much money you got. The celestial dragons. Gerald clenched his teeth, on the brink of rage, damn it. Sapphire became a slave? Which celestial dragon, when? But this time, no matter how much he questioned, the couple wouldn't speak. Until Gerald held a blade to the auctioneer's neck. A girl with blue eyes? I remember. It was Saint Cassiria. Saint Cassiria bought her. It's not my fault, it's not my fault. Cassiria. Gerald took a deep breath, feeling closer to finding Sapphire, then noticed the auctioneer's evasive eyes. He realized that if it were just this, the despicable traffickers wouldn't have hidden it. An immense fear gripped him. Gerald trembled, asking, and then. Saint Cassiria thought her eyes were beautiful, so he had a slave gouge them out. Gouging them out, they no longer looked like sapphires. Saint Cassiria was furious and had the eyes put back. That girl, no. It's not my fault. A flash of blood, followed by silence. Gerald hung his head. Ha. Cassiria. Conqueror's haki, awakened. Boom. A massive fist struck down, shattering Vice Admiral Doug's coffee table. The robust old man stood up, no longer gentle, trembling all over. After a moment of silence, he walked into the bedroom without a word. Every time he hears about justice being tarnished, the teacher gets very angry, Mia said sorrowfully. Figo, you understand, right? This isn't sympathy for pirates, it's just... She paused, staring into Figo's eyes. I spent 8 years in Impel Down, encountering various pirates, many with their own hardships, Figo said after a moment of silence, shaking his head. Perhaps because I haven't experienced it myself, I still feel that hardships can't wash away evil. He looked at Mia, saying, but sympathy is certainly permissible, and anger is justified. I would be gentler with pirates who have unfortunate circumstances. After all, as humans, there are things you can't ignore once you see or hear them, making it hard not to feel sympathy. In his mind, the image of the angelic sapphire-eyed girl still lingered. Event requirement: kill, or help Gerald kill, preferably torture to death, celestial dragon Kizaru. It's hard not to be angry. Chapter 24. 2 reasons. Outside Vice Admiral Doug's house, Mia and Figo exchanged glances. Figo tilted his head toward the door. Mia said, no, the teacher's health must be fine. However, this is the first time he has ever driven me out of the house, saying he needs to rest. It's probably because the matter involves the celestial dragons, and feeling powerless makes him even angrier. Is that so? Figo mused, well, it is the celestial dragons. Speaking of which, are the forces around the celestial dragons really that strong? Even the Crazy Laugh Pirates' assault failed. Of course not. The Crazy Laugh Pirates were discovered by headquarters as soon as they infiltrated the Sabayati archipelago, giving us time to react, though we almost missed it, Mia explained. Maybe it would have been better if they had been a bit later, she thought silently, not voicing it. Figo had his own thoughts as well. The two fell silent for a moment. The celestial dragons are the descendants of the 20 kings who founded the world government 700 years ago, claiming to be descendants of the creators and enjoying all privileges. Once offended, the Navy's highest combat forces, the Admirals and the highest intelligence agents, CP0, must unconditionally ensure their safety. Because of these privileges, most of the celestial dragons are arrogant, ignorant fools and the dregs of humanity. Their existence is the greatest humiliation to the Navy's sense of justice. But what can be done? Generations of Navy personnel never lack righteous individuals, yet the celestial dragons have existed for 700 years, which says a lot. Speaking of which, isn't Doug worried that listening to his students' stories often might shake his sense of justice? Figo asked again. The teacher's inspire fruit isn't just used on us, Mia replied. He often uses it on himself as well. He'll be fine, probably just needs a day's rest. Let's come back to the teacher's house tomorrow morning. There should still be a dozen people from our elite class of that year staying at the Navy headquarters. I'll see if I can find a few. Humans are social creatures, and Figo accepted Mia's goodwill. Thanks, see you tomorrow then. Yes, see you tomorrow. Mia waved. The two parted ways. Figo looked around. The Navy headquarters residential area was large, with bustling shops and lively commercial streets, mostly run by the families of Navy personnel, honest and fair. He still had some treasure from Durandake on Woe Island to exchange later, but for now, he decided to check how dilapidated his home, uninhabited for 8 years, had become. Wandering through the neighborhood, he found his way to the familiar place after about 20 minutes. The surrounding layout hadn't changed much, and his modest house still stood there. But to Figo's surprise, the house's exterior walls weren't as dilapidated as he had expected. They even looked newer, as if they had been repainted. Askin with his Kanbunsho Kohaki revealed several people inside the house. Could his home have been occupied? His memory didn't include any record of renting out the house. It was a residence allocated by the Navy headquarters. Figo walked over and knocked on the door. 3 seconds later, the door opened. At first glance, no one was there, but he saw various flower arrangements and ribbons. The living room was decorated as if for a celebration. The next second, several people jumped out. Surprise! Ha ha ha, Lord Figo! Welcome back to the Navy headquarters. Ugh, finally, we see Lord Figo again. We missed you so much. Figo was stunned for a moment, then smiled, it's you guys, ha ha ha. They were a few guards from Impel Down who had left Midway over the past 8 years, all familiar faces to Figo. Figo, isn't this a pleasant surprise? Another familiar voice came from the side. I heard our Navy flower was walking with a stranger. After hearing their description, I guessed it might be you who had returned. In a hurry, I could only notify these few. Ugh, as expected of Lord Figo. Even though it's Lord Figo, I'm still so envious. Major General Mia belongs to everyone. Ignoring the snotty noses, Figo turned around. Justice Cloak, Vice Admiral Insignia. Long time no see, Caesar, you actually planned this ambush, Figo greeted. It's not an ambush, Caesar indicated Figo's house, you replaced me in Impel Down for 2 more years. I had to do something for you. These guys were eager to tidy up your house when they heard it was for you. Your home has long been cleaned up by us, ready for you to move in. Thanks, Figo smiled. Rather than reconnecting with his old classmates, he felt closer to these friends he had made himself. The group reminisced and joked, eventually ending up at a tavern, where they drank heartily from afternoon until late at night. Only Figo and Caesar were still standing when they left the tavern. Caesar was also drunk, slurring, "Fi Figo, I need to go home." Figo, swaying slightly, gave him an okay gesture, parted ways, turned a corner, and no longer any trace of drunkenness. His formidable physique gave him an incredible ability to metabolize alcohol, far beyond Caesar's capacity. Now, I have an alibi, Figo murmured to himself. He opened the prison archives and turned to Gerald's corresponding page, focusing on the event of killing celestial dragon Kizaru Saint. A directional arrow appeared. It moved slowly. Gerald had attacked Kizaru Saint, and the disgruntled celestial dragon would quickly return from the Sabaody archipelago to marry Gosa. He was on the sea, and the Navy Admiral wouldn't escort him back. The route between the Navy headquarters, Sabaody archipelago, and Mary Gosa roughly formed a triangle, with each side about 500 miles apart. This route was incredibly safe, located in the calm belt. Pirate ships wouldn't appear here. No one could travel between the islands overnight. Figo's swimming ability, showcased in Impel Down, only allowed him to swim 50 nautical miles, a great swimmer at best. But fishmen were different. Indeed, Figo planned to complete Gerald's character event before the celestial dragon returned to marry Gosa. There were many reasons to dissuade him, and Figo could easily list 100. There are countless tragedies happening in the world every day. Do you want to intervene in each one you hear about or see? You can't manage them all. Don't become a slave to the archives, risking everything to complete character events. Attacking a celestial dragon is like stirring a hornet's nest, and there's a chance of failure. The calm belt is filled with giant sea kings. You might not even make it across safely. Don't let a saint-like mentality lead you to take such a risk for a stranger pirate. In the world of pirates, you must adapt to the disgusting celestial dragons. Just avoid them. Only 2 points persuaded Figo. First, completing this character event would grant him the reward of Conqueror's Haki. Second, he wanted to go. He wanted to. Chapter 25. Capturing a Celestial Dragon. The Navy headquarters is surrounded by the sea, making it easy for Figo to find a place to enter the water without attracting attention. Having guarded Impel Down for 8 years, he was familiar with the characteristics of surveillance Den Mushi. Once in the water, he followed the directional arrow. Over the past 8 years, Impel Down had intermittently imprisoned around a dozen fishmen since the initial 4. None were particularly strong, but they had helped increase Figo's fishman strength to 655 points. Still, he was only at the level of a second-grade fishman child, far from becoming a fishman youth. However, his swimming speed far surpassed that of fishman children. His robust physique allowed his arms to move like propellers, turning him into a speedboat. In less than 5 minutes, he left the lights of the Navy headquarters behind, getting closer and closer to his destination. On the other side, on the windless route from the Sabaody archipelago to marry Gosa, a luxuriously decorated ship was brightly lit. On board, the celestial dragon Kizaru Saint was in a foul mood. In his nearly 60 years of life, he had never been as humiliated or offended as today. Those filthy pirates had dared to attack him, nearly injuring his noble body. Even the bubble hood he wore on his head had been damaged, forcing him to breathe the same dirty air as commoners, making him feel nauseous ever since, unable to eat dinner. Moreover, half of his beloved slaves, whom he had accumulated over decades, had been killed or injured. Even the slaves he used to rest his feet and backside were dead. The one currently under him kept trembling, making him uncomfortable. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. Kizaru drew his ornate sword and slashed at the slave. A bloody wound appeared, and the slave trembled even more but dared not scream, nor did he dare to let Kizaru Saint fall. That would mean certain death. Unlike him, a muffled scream of pain came from the other side of the cabin. Kizaru's eyes narrowed. He threw away the bloody sword and picked up a nearby firearm, striding over. In a private cell on the ship, used to punish disobedient slaves, a muscular fishman slave was hanging by chains, being whipped by another slave, covered in wounds. "You filthy fishman! How dare you make a sound?" Kizaru shouted as he approached. The slave whipping the fishman stepped back, and Kizaru aimed the firearm at the fishman's body. The fishman, extremely weak, mumbled, "Kizaru Saint, my brother." Bang! The firearm roared, and a bloody hole appeared in the fishman's arm. Losing his breath, the fishman fainted, only to be painfully awakened by subsequent shots. "Useless! You were knocked out by those filthy pirates in an instant, and you dare to ask the great creator for anything." "I, blocked, saved." Indeed, if not for the fishman, today's attack might have done more than just break his bubble hood. This only made Kizaru Saint angrier. With a twisted expression, he aimed the firearm at the fishman's head. At that moment, a dull thud sounded behind him. Kizaru turned to see a strong, wet figure, shirt clinging to his body. He looked up in confusion. "Who are you?" Despite looking up, his face was full of arrogance. Kizaru snorted, pointing the gun at Figo, "I don't remember having a slave like you. Get lost." Bang! The firearm spat fire. The bullet struck Figo but was deflected with a snap. Bang! 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 Snap! Amidst 4 deflected bullets, Figo's large hand swung, shattering the glass hood on Kizaru's head and striking his face. The pig-like fat face twisted, teeth and blood flying, his clumsy body flipping through the air, crashing down in a high-difficulty rotation. Kizaru Saint writhed on the deck with a miserable scream, trembling as he pointed at Figo, "You lowly mortal!" Crack! Figo broke his hand. "Ah!" His agonizing scream echoed through the ship, but no one came to check. All the slaves on board had silently fallen into unconsciousness. Kizaru's body twitched, finally fainting, leaving only the chained fishman awake. Initially dazed, the fishman's awareness sharpened as he watched Figo. You are, from Impel Down." Fishman Agar. Figo hadn't expected the defenses on the Celestial Dragon's ship to be so weak or to encounter him here. The first fishman captured and taken to Impel Down, the one who had helped activate his fishman strength. Taken from Impel Down, he hadn't been executed but made into a Celestial Dragon's slave? Damn Celestial Dragons, damn Celestial Dragons took my brother as a slave for no reason. Figo remembered Agar's angry shouts, looked at the slave mark on him, and went outside to find a key on a nearby slave, releasing Agar from the chains. The 4-limbed fishman slumped to the ground, still shocked as he looked at Figo. "Why, how did you?" Figo didn't explain, instead lifting Kizaru Saint and chaining him up. The prison archives appeared in his mind. Prisoner, Abdul Kizaru. Level, N2. Status, captured. Crime Index, 2699. Capture participation, 100%. Reward, swordsmanship plus 5398. 15,284, level 4 sword master. At first glance, Figo thought he had misread. After double-checking, he confirmed it. What could he have done to have a crime index more than 20 times higher than that of the heart-controlling demon, a pure evildoer? He slowly turned, looking toward Mary Gosa. "So, that's the greatest treasure for me? A treasure bigger than Impel Down, home to a bunch of emperors of the sea who are powerless to resist. Unfortunately, this treasure is extremely difficult to obtain." Lying on the ground, the fishman finally confirmed this wasn't a dream. With a pleading look, he said, my brothers, my brothers. You became his slave for the sake of your brothers, wanting me to help you find out their situation?" Figo asked. The fishman nodded with difficulty. "Don't ask. They're all dead." From the moment he saw Agar, Figo had quickly searched the prison archives, finding the fishmen Papas and the 3 fishmen captured during the Impel Down raid. All were marked deceased. Agar's fish eyes lost their light instantly. He had long suspected this outcome but had refused to believe it. Figo picked up a nearby whip. Crack! 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 Ah! Kizaru Saint woke with a scream, then fainted again from the pain. Figo didn't bother with him, giving no chance for pleas or threats, knowing the arrogant celestial dragon would only issue threats. Having spent 8 years in Impel Down, Figo was adept with a whip. He knew the precise force and angle needed for each physique, injury, and tolerance. It was like interrogating the villains of Impel Down. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. The celestial dragon repeatedly woke and fainted from the pain, his body gradually covered in welts, snot, tears, and other filth flowing freely. Until he was whipped to death. This might have been too lenient, but Figo didn't want to engage in more brutal torture or linger too long, risking complications. Gerald's character event was completed. Figo threw the whip aside, hesitating as he looked at Agar. During the 10 minutes of rest, Agar seemed to regain some strength. Though his face was ashen, his speech became coherent, perhaps a sign of a final surge of energy. Don't pity me, human. I don't know why you are here or why you killed a celestial dragon, but silencing is necessary. I've lost everything and have nothing left to fear. To regain my freedom in my last moments, thank you. He looked at the unconscious slaves outside the cell. I suppose, they feel the same. No, I was just thinking about how to frame the celestial dragon's death on you, Figo said. Can you help me with that? Agar froze, then laughed bitterly, you. A minute later, with trembling arms, he broke the slave collar around his neck, laughing as he removed it. With a massive explosion, the collar detonated, engulfing the entire ship in flames. Soon, the other slaves' collars followed, one after another. In the nearby sea, Figo watched quietly until the ship disintegrated, the sea stone sections sinking into the depths, sea kings devouring all traces. Then he turned and swam back to the Navy headquarters. Agar's level was only R9, and Figo could have easily killed him with 2 punches. But tonight, he felt a different kind of power in Agar. Spirit, loyalty, freedom. An indescribable emotion and understanding churned within him. Before he chose Gerald's character event reward, a new ability had already appeared in his list. Conqueror's Haki, 27. Level 1, Conqueror's Haki Budding. Chapter 26. The World Government Shaken. The following morning, Navy Admiral Oa met with Mendes bin Saint, one of the 5 elders, at Marigiosa. Admiral Oa was 69 years old, mostly white hair, and a relatively short stature at 1.6 meters. Despite lacking the physical presence of a Grand Admiral, his stern face radiated authority. He did not bow to the highest authority of the world government. Mendes bin Saint, why has the world government been collaborating with the notorious human trafficker, the Mountain Witch, without my knowledge as the Navy Admiral? He asked bluntly. Are you questioning me? Mendes bin Saint responded with displeasure. Gaston Figo disrupted the world government's plan to ally with the giants, and I haven't held you accountable. Why did you allow him to board that warship? That was an alliance with the giants. It was a deceitful scheme. A ticking time bomb. Oa retorted. Mendes bin Saint frowned, staring at him. Oa stared back, his neck stiff. After a long silence, Mendes bin Saint said, Enough, the plan has failed, and I won't waste words on a failure. Oa, I called you here to inform you of 2 things. The Mountain Witch's soul fruit is extremely useful, but I will give you face this time and allow her to be imprisoned in Impel Down. Oa's expression softened slightly. But the 7 giants cannot be imprisoned. We cannot risk angering the entire giant race and reuniting the giant pirate fleet. I will have them brought to Marigiosa for a different arrangement. Oa frowned again. However, this matter was within his tolerance range. Mendes bin Saint had given him some leeway, so he had to reciprocate. As a Navy Admiral facing the 5 elders, he was still in a weaker position. He bargained, one of the 7 giants, Kevin, has a personal vendetta against the heart-controlling demon Gildikak, who Figo captured this time. Kevin joined the giant pirate fleet later and does not have the blood of Marines on his hands. I want to keep him and persuade him to become a Marine officer. Mendes bin Saint considered for a few seconds. Agreed. The second matter, the world government has decided to separate Impel Down from the Navy headquarters, strengthening its power. A new director position will be established, making Impel Down the 3rd institution directly under the government, alongside the Navy headquarters and NICE lobby. Admiral Oa was stunned. No. He wasn't worried about weakening the Navy but asked, is this move to provide the celestial dragons with better and stronger slaves? This is an announcement, not a discussion, Mendes bin Saint said. You should have heard about yesterday's attack on Kizaru Saint at Sabayati. As world nobles, the safety of the celestial dragons must be better ensured. It is only natural. Impel Down's current strength is insufficient to handle the increasing number of pirates within. The pirate who attacked Kizaru Saint was captured but couldn't be transferred to Impel Down due to the prison's lack of power. Isn't this a joke? Indeed, it was. Oa remained silent. In any case, that's the end of this matter. Oa, you can recommend candidates for the Impel Down director. If there are no suitable ones, the world government will appoint someone. Mendes bin Saint instructed directly. I understand. Oa knew arguing further was futile. Not all celestial dragons were useless. All celestial dragon children underwent selection and training. A small number with talent received different education from the mainstream useless ones, guided by top teachers in various fields. Upon reaching adulthood, they occupied important positions in the world government. The 5 elders were the highest-ranking celestial dragons, each generation's 5 most outstanding individuals. Naturally, they sought to reinforce the celestial dragon's status. The celestial dragon's supremacy was an unbreakable rule, distinct from matters involving the mountain witch or the giants, allowing no room for negotiation. Every time a celestial dragon faced a daring attack, it caused a stir. If not for the early detection of the laughing pirates, yesterday's incident wouldn't have passed so easily. Suddenly, there was a knock on the conference room door. After Mendes bin Saint permitted entry, a CP0 intelligence officer wearing a peculiar mask entered, kneeling on one knee. 5 elders, Kizaru Saint's party, expected to return to Mary Gosa this morning, has not arrived. The gold Den Mushi that communicates with Kizaru Saint's silver Den Mushi has also lost its signal, he reported. What? Mendes bin Saint stood up, frowning. Admiral Oa's expression also changed. Kizaru Saint was in trouble again? If the gold Den Mushi was inactive, then likely. Forgive our negligence. We discovered the signal loss at 4 am and determined the signal went out between midnight and 4 am. We immediately dispatched CP1 armed forces to search but found no trace of Kizaru Saint's ship. We can confirm that Kizaru Saint's party has likely been killed. Mendes bin Saint's face darkened. Any leads? CP0 lowered his head. None. We contacted the garrison at Sabayati and nearby islands but found no suspicious ships on Kizaru Saint's route. His exact location shouldn't have been found. We can only suspect that a fishman might have followed Kizaru Saint's ship from Sabayati, a pirate with a flying devil fruit, or an uprising by the ship's slaves causing self-destruction. Slave uprising? After being attacked by pirates during the day? Why wouldn't they revolt then? Mendes bin Saint dismissed one possibility. Keep investigating. Oa, return to the headquarters immediately and have the Navy fully cooperate with CP0's investigation. Oa didn't want to waste Navy time for a celestial dragon but couldn't refuse. Understood. Also, Mendes bin Saint paused. Oa, check if any Navy ships left without permission last night. Also, list all Marines with flying or similar devil fruit abilities and their activities last night. Oa's eyes widened. Mendes bin Saint, what are you implying? Mendes bin Saint looked at him coldly before sitting back down. If you still want to be Admiral, follow orders. As the world government was shaken by the mysterious death of a celestial dragon, the culprit, Figo, had a good night's sleep and energetically knocked on Vice Admiral Doug's door. Haha, Figo, you're here. Come in, Doug greeted with a hearty laugh, showing no signs of yesterday's anger. Teacher, I'm Figo. Ah, yes, sorry, Doug apologized quickly. Figo, I was out of line yesterday. I didn't have time to ask about your future plans. After being promoted to Vice Admiral, you can choose to stay at the headquarters, leading a massive warship patrolling the Grand Line. You can also choose to oversee one of the 4 seas as the highest-ranking Marine officer there. Or you could go directly to the New World, guarding a branch, fighting the major pirates, and capturing those villains. Each option has its pros and cons. But with your talent, you will undoubtedly grow quickly in any role. In 10 years, maybe even sooner, you'll be a candidate for Admiral, then an Admiral, leaving your mark on Navy history. I, Doug, believe in you. The power of the inspiration fruit activated. Figo smiled. Teacher, you got me all fired up. So, which will you choose? I'm going back to Impel Down. Doug was stunned. What? Chapter 27. I want to return to Impel Down. Filled with enthusiasm, yet choosing none of the three options and wanting to return to Impel Down, it almost felt like an insult to his inspirational fruit, but there was no evidence to prove it. Vice Admiral Doug adjusted his glasses, staring intently at Figo. Figo explained, a true man doesn't necessarily have to aspire to the vast ocean. If everyone longs for the sea, who will take up the role of a prison guard? During the past 8 years, I was indeed afraid of the solitude and loneliness of Impel Down and became a deserter. I don't think that's right. Why did that sound so familiar? Doug looked puzzled. So? The captain of the Laughing Pirates couldn't even be transported to Impel Down. The reputation of the world's first underwater prison is somewhat exaggerated. I'm more familiar and suitable for the guarding work there, and Impel Down is also a good place to focus on improving my strength. After careful consideration, I've decided to go back for a few more years. Doug was speechless. Figo's decision to return to Impel Down was carefully considered, but not for the reasons he told Doug. While capturing the escaped giants on Uno Island, Figo realized that recapturing prisoners could supplement his participation rate. This realization made him consider returning to Impel Down, believing there was more potential for him to operate there, far more than he had previously thought. It was still the most convenient place for him to enhance his strength. However, his 8 years there were quite stifling. With his current strength, capturing pirates outside wouldn't be too dangerous or slow to improve, so he had been indecisive. But discovering that celestial dragons were like pirate emperors with untapped potential treasures for him solidified his decision to return. Figo wasn't someone who couldn't tolerate any wrongdoing. The 3 CP9 members had crime indices of over 10, but he didn't think they must die because of their positions. Even after 8 years as a prison guard, Figo couldn't guarantee he had no crime index. Unless he witnessed them doing something disgusting, he wouldn't take action. Out of sight, out of mind. But celestial dragons were different. Their existence violated Figo's fundamental values. Their brutality and stupidity, along with the slave trade they fueled, created countless tragedies like Sapphire every day in the pirate world. Anger over his first act would inevitably lead to a second. They also happened to offer a huge number of benefits, and Figo knew he couldn't stop thinking about targeting them. You can't hunt all the time without being hunted. Once or twice might go unnoticed. Disguises, alibis, and his unique fishman power could help him hide well. But the world government's full force was enormous. Celestial dragons, who had maintained their supreme status for 700 years, couldn't have no hidden cards, or they would have been secretly killed by lawless pirates long ago. Figo wasn't even sure he could defeat every slave group around the celestial dragons now. One mistake would likely be fatal, so going directly to Mary Gosa for treasure hunting was out of the question. Figo needed more power. Admiral-level power. Power that would let him secretly kill celestial dragons without much concern. Power that would let him escape easily even if exposed. And Impel Down was the quickest place for Figo to break through the huge barrier between Vice Admiral and Admiral. After all, the giant power he gained on Uno Island would extend his life by at least 10 years. Even if he spent all 10 years in Impel Down, so what? Figo could wait. This couldn't be rushed. Doug couldn't understand Figo's thoughts and hesitated to persuade him, but then he said, "Figo, is this because of what Mia said yesterday?" Figo shook his head. "No, teacher, I was indeed very angry about that little girl's experience, but it didn't make me lose heart and want to retreat to Impel Down. At worst, I could choose to go to the New World or one of the 4 seas to stay away from those disgusting celestial dragons. She's not a little girl. If she were still alive, she'd be your age." Doug corrected, "You're not making a hasty decision. As your teacher, I can only support and believe in you. When you walk out of Impel Down again, you will undoubtedly be a stronger Marine, leaving your mark on Navy history. I, Doug, believe in you." He habitually encouraged him but hesitated. "Are you sure you don't want to reconsider?" The following day, Doug, looking somewhat troubled, arrived at Admiral Oa's office. "Oa, what is it?" "Just back from Mary Gosa," Oa asked Doug. "Doug, the day before yesterday afternoon, you inexplicably prepared to set sail but didn't. What were you doing? You're managing this too?" "I was just practicing the preparations for setting sail." "What's the matter? Good thing you didn't actually set sail." Oa said, "Late that night, Celestial Dragon Kizaru Saint was killed on the way back to marry Gosa, and the perpetrator is still at large. The world government is furious. Doug's eyes widened, then he burst into laughter. Serves him right. It must be the laughing pirates. Serves him right. Keep it down. Oa frowned and reminded him, it wasn't the laughing pirates, they've been defeated. If this isn't solved soon, it will cause trouble. If they can silently attack a celestial dragon once, they can do it again. For now, CP0 will monitor all celestial dragons' movements, and we have to waste our navy resources to protect them openly and secretly. Humph. Doug snorted, then couldn't help but laugh again, wiping away tears. Oa, you don't know what that celestial dragon did. To be honest, I prepared to set sail that day to kill him myself. Are you mad? Oa exclaimed. Almost went mad. Doug pulled up a chair and sat down. I never thought someone would do what I didn't dare. If I knew who it was, I'd thank them properly. Oa frowned deeply, looking at the tightly closed door, then at Doug's expression. What did that celestial dragon do? I don't want to recall it again. It took all my effort and my inspirational fruit to calm myself and remind myself of my status as a vice admiral. Doug said. Is that why you look troubled? Oa asked again. Not really. Doug replied, it's my student who just got out of Impel Down. He wants to go back. Figo. Oa was surprised. Yes. Doug explained Figo's reasons for wanting to return to Impel Down, sighed, that kid has grown a lot, very determined. My inspirational fruit hardly works on him. I can't persuade him. Can you help? No, Oa smiled, in fact, I was wondering how to persuade Figo to return to Impel Down for a few more years. He told Doug about the world government's plan to make Impel Down an independent institution and establish a director position. This position is crucial. We can't let the world government take it, or Impel Down will become a slave market for celestial dragons. Doug hissed, looking troubled, then left. Fine, I can't persuade him anyway. You talk to him. In a few days. You first tell him about the changes coming to Impel Down. For now, even if it's just for show, we have to fully cooperate with the investigation into Kizaru Saint's death. Don't investigate too seriously. Doug paused at the door. Please? Please? Oa frowned. What's with this old guy? A few days later, at Mary Gosa. Still no clues. Diving units have meticulously searched the possible attack site, but we haven't found the exact location. No suspicious targets. This doesn't warrant the deployment of the Divine Army. Is the Navy really doing its best to cooperate? Mendespin Saint, are you being too lenient with Oa? I've said before, when choosing a Navy Admiral, we shouldn't only consider capability but also obedience. Because of Kizaru Saint's death, the 5 elders gathered for the third time, but still couldn't reach a conclusion and dispersed. In fact, they weren't overly concerned about the death of a celestial dragon, which happened every few decades. They were more troubled by the lack of clues. Mendespin Saint, criticized for his leniency towards Oa, returned to his residence, fuming. Those 4 idiots don't understand a thing. He maintained the celestial dragon's arrogance, looking down even on his fellow 5 elders. Obedient fools are useless. Disobedient ones have vitality, and manipulating them without their knowing is the real fun. At his residence's entrance, Peslo and the other 2 CP9 members who failed their mission finally received a summons, kneeling to await their fate. 5 elders. Mendespin Saint signaled them to rise. In this mission, the giants never knew your true identities. Only Figo and that lieutenant colonel know, correct? Yes. Mendespin Saint pondered, from today, the world government will erase all traces of you. You are no longer CP9. 5 elders. You were once friends of the giants, captured while trying to save them, and had to join the world government to save their lives. After 2 years of training, you became CP9. The 3 were stunned, then Peslo, the quickest to understand, asked, are we to replace the mountain witch? Not entirely. The details need refinement. I want you to become honored guests among the giants in 2 years. Mendespin Saint said, this mission is top secret. Gaston Figo and that lieutenant colonel will keep it confidential. As he finished speaking, a tiny den mushi on his arm rang. After answering, he smiled faintly. He knew Oa would persuade Gaston Figo to return to Impel Down as its director upon hearing the news of its independence. Now, only the transfer of that lieutenant colonel to the world government was necessary. The giants can't escape my grasp. Chapter 28 Surviving. A few days later, at the naval headquarters port, Mia, Caesar, Doug, and others bid farewell to Figo as he boarded the ship back to Impel Down. Gradually, the warship disappeared from their sight. Figo waved one last time before turning and heading back to the cabin. It feels like going home. Playing with the newly acquired sword at his waist, Figo felt no dread about returning to life in Impel Down. The sword at his waist was a gift from Fleet Admiral Oa, who knew that Figo's previous sword was broken during his battle with Gildikak. This sword was also given as a reward for capturing Gildikak. There is no distinction yet between supreme grade blades and great grade blades, but Figo could tell that this sword was far superior to his previous one. It should be a famous sword. The scabbard was decorated with intricate flames, looking very cool, but Figo didn't know its name. So, he walked to the back of the cabin and asked the prisoner locked up there, "What's the name of your sword?" Gerard silently looked up at Figo, then lowered his head without speaking. Yes, this sword was taken from Gerard, the captain of the Laughing Pirates. The human trafficker Nun and Gildikak had already been transported to Impel Down earlier, but Gerard had to wait for Figo, the new warden, to arrive. "If you don't tell me, I'll just name it myself." "Do as you wish," Gerard replied. "The one who stopped me from committing suicide when I met that female rear admiral must have been you, Navy." "Yes, and I'll be the warden of Impel Down for the next 10 years, so you'll be seeing a lot of me," Figo said. Gerard looked up and said indifferently, "Do you want to hear my story, Navy?" "I've already heard it. Mia told me." "Really? What did you feel?" "Anger and sympathy. And then? When you're in Impel Down, I'll make sure you get more meals, with meat," Figo said. Gerard looked at him, a mocking smile forming on his lips, then he lowered his head again. Gerard wasn't telling his story in hopes of pity, he wanted to shake Mia and Figo's sense of justice and make them doubt themselves. Although his crime index wasn't high, and his initial intent was to find his sister, Gerard had been a pirate for many years and was no longer a good person. He didn't expect Mia and Figo to go against the Celestial Dragons because of his story, nor did he know that the Celestial Dragon was already dead, he was just seeking a way to exact some revenge. "Since you won't tell me the name, I'll call this sword Ruby," Figo said. Gerard stiffened, then looked up in a mix of surprise and anger. "Change it. Looks like I guessed right. The sword was already named Ruby, wasn't it?" "Your naming skills are quite mediocre," Figo laughed. "By the way, did your story include Blue Sapphire's death? Did she really die at the hands of that celestial dragon after losing her eyes?" Gerard's eyes twitched fiercely. "Are you deliberately provoking and humiliating me?" "Ha, save your little tricks." Figo gave a meaningful smile, turned, and left. In the cell, the infamous pirate Gerard clenched his fists nervously, sweat dripping from his forehead. To unsettle Mia, he had hidden a part of the truth, a secret he kept deeply buried, one he would never tell anyone. Blue Sapphire had indeed survived. But how did this guy see through it? Damn! For a moment, he was filled with intense anxiety. Figo didn't know the truth initially. But he had the prison archive. SSR-level prisoners differed from SR-level ones, having not just one, but several events, including a core event. After completing all the character events, the core event could be activated, granting 3 rewards from the character. After killing the Celestial Dragon to complete Gerard's first character event, Figo activated the second event, revealing a scene where Gerard tearfully embraced a girl who had grown up to be Blue Sapphire. "Brother, don't cry." The girl's voice was as pure as when she was little. "It's all over. I knew you'd find me. I've been looking for you too. Your eyes. It's okay, it doesn't hurt anymore. I almost died back then, but I got lucky. The Celestial Dragon lost interest in me after I went blind and didn't take me as a slave. You know me, brother. Even without my eyes, I can see everything. After they threw me out of the auction house, I found a kind doctor who took me in and saved my life. Let's let it all go now. Don't be a pirate anymore, brother. Let's find a place where no one knows us and start over." "Okay, okay." Character Event 2, although Gerard agreed with Blue Sapphire to let everything go, seeing her tightly closed eyes and the scars underneath, thinking about the pain a 7-year-old girl endured and how she struggled to survive, his anger only grew stronger. He secretly decides to kill the celestial dragon Cassila Saint, then follows Blue Sapphire's wish to find a secluded island and live in hiding, but he is captured instead. Now he is filled with regret and worry for Blue Sapphire. Event requirement: convince Blue Sapphire to forget about him, live happily on her own, never seek revenge, and never try to rescue him. A sibling nesting doll situation. Figo was both surprised and speechless. He also understood Gerard's little trick. If he had known Blue Sapphire was still alive, his anger while hearing the story would have been tempered. The feeling of misfortune leading to death versus surviving misfortune is different. Gerard understood human nature well. But Figo wasn't angry, both scenarios didn't affect his disdain for the celestial dragons. In fact, he was somewhat happy that the girl wasn't defeated by misfortune and lived strongly. Her natural observation haki allowed her to care for herself even without sight. As for the current situation and this character event too, Figo decided not to intervene. Gerard's capture was inevitable. After 20 years of struggle and betrayal, he could never go back even if he retained some principles. Kill the celestial dragon and hide? No, he wouldn't. Even if he succeeded, he would think, I need to protect Blue Sapphire better, provide her a better life, and keep my strength. No matter where we hide, there's always a risk of being exposed and danger looming. The pirate crew can't disband. Or something similar. The final outcome would be either the girl being corrupted or the siblings falling out, or worse, dying together at sea. This way was better. Figo followed the arrow of the character event pointing northwest and glanced in that direction. With the celestial dragon dead, it was nonsense for a blind girl to try rescuing him from Impel Down. Stay pure and live well. Figo silently wished her well, then turned, smiling warmly. The first level of Impel Down, the sea platform, was now in sight. Chapter 29. Just like coming home. At the platform of Impel Down's level 0. He's coming, I see the ship. Is Warden Figo on board? I can't tell. No, we can't call him Warden anymore. We have to call him Director now. Right, right. By the way, what level is a Director? If Impel Down is now directly under the world government, does that mean the Director is like a fleet admiral? Wow, really? Director Figo is amazing. The guards waiting to welcome Figo were excited, but Kimchi stood in the corner with a slightly sour face, finding their chatter annoying. Figo had left him in charge for 7 years before leaving. He had just gotten used to being in charge for a month. He was supposed to be transferred away. Oh, you're playing with me, letting me enjoy being in charge for a month, and now you come back with a new director position? Still 1 rank higher than me, making my promotion to warden pointless. As he fumed, the guards erupted in louder cheers, indicating that they had seen Figo on the deck as the ship approached. The guards, who had cried when Figo left a month ago, were once again shedding exaggerated tears. Seeing this, Figo didn't wait for the ship to dock. He leaped high from the ship, stepping lightly in mid-air, producing a sharp sound as he reversed gravity, rising again. Repeating this several times, he used moonwalk from the 6 powers to fly to the platform. Everyone, long time no see. Wah, Lord Figo. So cool. We missed you so much. We thought we wouldn't see you for years. You must have missed us. Indeed, I missed everyone, so I came back, Figo laughed heartily. He then waved at Kimchi, saying, Old Kim, have those guys in the 5th and 6th levels behaved while I was gone for this month? Oh Old Kim. A month of absence and this guy gives me such a lousy nickname. Kimchi was stunned, but a straightforward guard answered, Lord Kimchi couldn't manage it. Although we didn't see it firsthand, he's always taking out his anger on the training area's stones. Couldn't even catch a sea king. Yet, totally incapable. You bastards are incapable. Your whole family is incapable. Kimchi's face darkened further. His intimidation of the inmates in the 5th and 6th levels wasn't as effective as Figo's, but that was due to the short time he had been in charge. How could a short duration be used to say he was incapable? As for catching sea kings, that's because I don't like eating them. No worries, lads. Is the water heated? Inform the kitchen to get ready. We'll baptize the new prisoners and then I'll take old Kim down to the lower levels for a round. After that, we'll catch a big one for everyone to feast on, and have a banquet. Yet. Cheers erupted. After the cheers subsided, Figo pointed to the approaching warship. This time, the prisoner being transported here is a big deal. He's a pirate with a bounty of 640 million berry, the infamous Laughing Gerard. He's a major pirate with the legendary House Hoku Haki. Don't be scared. No way. With Lord Figo here, even a pirate with a bounty of 1 billion berry wouldn't be a problem. Boasting, just pure boasting, Kimchi thought silently. While Figo was indeed stronger than him, he doubted that Gerard, a notorious pirate famous even before Figo joined Impel Down, could be subdued by Figo. 1 billion berry? That would wipe out Impel Down. Soon, Gerard was escorted down, and the guards crowded around curiously, making comments. So, this is a pirate worth 640 million berry? Doesn't seem different. Quite disappointing. Humph. You'll see the difference once his shackles are loosened during the baptism. Unlike the guards, Kimchi's muscles tensed slightly upon seeing Gerard, like a cat bristling. He then watched Gerard obediently let Figo strip him, hang him on a pole, and drop him into boiling water. Hey, this is the big pirate? He's not as fierce as the guys on the first level. Doesn't look any different. You don't understand, do you? He's definitely subdued by Lord Figo's aura. I see. Lord Figo is the best. A question mark slowly appeared above Kimchi's head. Is this really Gerard? When Gerard was pulled out of the water, without a single burn after a baptism in boiling water, just a clean bath that made him look even more handsome, Kimchi had to accept it. Why? What did I miss? Ignoring the guard's chatter, Kimchi pondered deeply until Figo pulled Gerard, now in prison garb, in front of him. Let's go, old Kim. What are you thinking about? Kimchi snapped back, forcing a smile as he followed Figo into Impel Down. Opening the special transport passage and heading down, the guard's noise faded, and Kimchi regained his calm. Figo, what's the deal with Impel Down being placed directly under the world government? The fleet admiral told me to follow your lead. What's our current situation? He asked. One reason is him, Figo indicated Gerard. He attacked a celestial dragon, leading the 5 elders to worry about the strength of the slaves around the celestial dragons. They placed Impel Down directly under the world government to conveniently select suitable, obedient slaves from here. Gerard froze, fury rising in his eyes, the chains clinking as a bit of his pirate aura emerged. Kimchi looked up, slightly wary. Attacked a celestial dragon? Was an admiral deployed? No wonder he was captured. Choosing slaves for the celestial dragons. So, the prisoners taken from Impel Down weren't all executed. What did the fleet admiral say? In a few days, they'll send me a special den mushi to contact the 5 elders directly. From now on, I'll follow their orders, Figo said. So, the important thing isn't what the fleet admiral says but what we do. Kimchi observed Figo's expression. I'll always be a marine. Coincidentally, so am I. The two reached a mutual understanding, then Figo added, oh, and along with the den mushi, there will probably be a deputy director from the world government. I don't know who it is. Kimchi's face darkened again. So not only is Figo back over me, but there will also be a deputy director. Old Kim, if I were you, I wouldn't accept this. We've both been here for 8 years. Why should he be deputy director and not you? Figo laughed. Kimchi clenched his fists, grunting, if he's stronger than me, fine. If not. As they spoke, they reached level 6 of Impel Down. Located in the deepest part of the sea, it held only a dozen perilous pirates, eerily silent. As the chains on Gerard's body clinked, pairs of deep eyes lit up in the cells, and seeing Figo, they all trembled slightly. That bastard, he's back? And that? Mad dog Gerard. You got caught too. Gerard ignored the old acquaintances. Figo observed each one, saying, it's only been a month, and you all look pale and thin. Old Kim, how long have you been starving them? Just 5 days. Seems it's not enough. These guys still have the strength to talk. Another 5 days won't hurt, Kimchi said. Instantly, murderous glares focused on Kimchi. Figo waved his hand, next time, perhaps. I've been promoted to director, we should all celebrate. After our banquet, we'll send the remaining Sea King meat down here. Let's give everyone a hearty meal. Kimchi hesitated. Is this all right? Surprisingly, the prisoners showed fear and anger instead of joy. Some tugged at their chains, shouting, what are you up to, you bastard? Starving them didn't break them, but offering meat made them afraid. Kimchi was puzzled. These pirates must be insane. Figo shook his head in resignation, then noticed a deeply malicious glare. He turned and smiled, Gildikak, you've become a spider. Still recovering your bones? Don't grow them wrong. I'll fix them in a few days. Gildikak, who had arrived ahead of Figo, lay limp on the ground, closing his eyes in hatred. Receiving the disdainful glares of the inmates, Figo escorted Gerard to an empty cell and chained him up. Let's go, old Kim. Seeing everyone well is good. Let's check the 5th level now. Wait, Navy, Gerard finally spoke up, I beg you. Relax, I'm a Marine, not a pirate or scoundrel like you, Figo waved without looking back. Consider Impel Down your home. I'll give you extra meals with rice and meat. Soon, you'll love it here. Gerard sighed in relief. The inmates of level 6 felt deeper dread. Even Mad Dog Gerard. Damn it. That madman is back after only a month. The 5th level housed many more prisoners, nearly 100. Seeing Figo back after a month, reactions varied. Some turned pale, cowering in corners, hoping Figo wouldn't notice them. Others glared with fury. There were also those who, fearless, spewed curses. The guys in level 6 are too good at judging situations. The 5th level still has some vitality, with a few idiots, Figo told Kimchi, finding a familiar face in one cell. The nun, now in prison garb, still had a beautiful, smooth face after the baptism. She looked at Figo with eyes alternating between hatred and confusion. Figo asked, "Want a cigarette?" The nun moved slightly. "Yes." Impel Down is smoke-free. Still want one? Figo's brows furrowed. Old Kim, starve her for a week. The nun. The 5th level fell silent. Here we go again. That lunatic is back. Human traffickers deserve no mercy. Feeling satisfied after punishing the nun, Figo smiled, receiving the stares of the inmates, and continued walking down the long corridor with Kimchi. Relaxed and carefree, it felt like coming home. Or like a king inspecting his domain. Seeing the inmates' reactions, Kimchi recalled his own month in charge and sighed inwardly. It is different. Chapter 30. Breakout. Oh, this is good. Kimchi devoured the stewed sea king meat in the guards' dining hall, beginning to understand why the guards were so enthusiastic about Figo. A month without this stuff, and he was really craving it. Impel Down really does need Figo. Alright, I'll work under him for another 10 years. 10 years from now, the position of director should be mine, Kimchi thought. 10 years would pass in the blink of an eye, and by then, he would only be 42 years old. On the other side, Figo, who hadn't had sea king meat for many days, was also eating voraciously. Pieces of meat the size of a human head were quickly chewed and swallowed by his teeth, like a meat grinder, in just 3 seconds. He ate while clearly shouting, "Hey, you there, haven't seen you before. Are you a new guard? Don't be shy, once you're in Impel Down, we're all family. And you there, already full? Too weak, go help out in the kitchen. And you, finished eating? Go get more bowls and chopsticks, and distribute a pound of meat to each prisoner. I got promoted to director and returned, so let the prisoners share in the celebration, and eat something good. Also, give some to the 5th and 6th levels. But be careful when you go down there, hand it to the prisoners through the bars where they can barely reach. Oh, right, that nun who was brought in 10 days ago doesn't get any, don't forget." The dining hall turned into a battlefield, with the clatter of dishes and loud calls. As the director, Figo naturally fought till the end. The huge empty plates on his table had been cleared away 3 times, yet it was still piled nearly a meter high. Wiping his mouth with a napkin handed by a guard, Figo stood up and belched. After a hearty meal, it was time for business. "Old Kim, I'm going down again. You don't need to come this time, just give me the keys." In the 5th level of Impel Down, Dohanam greedily licked the grease off his plate, showing no dignity of a pirate worth over $1 billion. 7 years, a full 7 years. He didn't even know what kind of life he was living anymore. Sometimes only getting a piece of dry bread every other day, occasionally being starved for 3 to 5 days by that bastard. Sometimes, he looked at his own arms and saw them glowing green. How could he resist the delicious sea king meat? In fact, he wasn't the only one, many other pirates were eating even less gracefully. When the guards first came down to distribute the Sea King meat, they were very apprehensive, wondering what trick Figo was up to now, suspecting the meat was poisoned to torture them. But when the aroma of the meat began to waft and spread through the 5th level, one person suddenly said, "Even if it's poisoned, I don't care." Another followed, "If he wanted us dead, he wouldn't waste poison, would he?" Though it was harsh, it made sense. So they ate like this. Until now, no one had died from poisoning, so the meat seemed fine. The only problem was, it wasn't enough for anyone. Seeing the grease licked clean, Dohanam smacked his lips, looked around, and shouted, "Who still has meat left? Give it to me. I have a treasure buried outside, worth about 3 billion berry. I can tell you the exact location." This only elicited snickers. "You'd have to get out of here first." "Oh, you have a treasure?" Figo's voice sounded distant, and the prisoners' voices instantly stopped. This time, no one cursed at him, they were all still hoping for another bite of meat, just one more bite. "Yes, I do." Dohanam's heart trembled slightly. "Figo, I'll trade my treasure for 10 meals. No, 5 meals. 3 billion berry, a normal person couldn't spend that in 10 lifetimes." Figo, seemingly very interested, walked to Dohanam's cell. The other prisoners' attention was entirely focused. If they could trade, who didn't have something good hidden outside? They'd lie to get a couple of meals, even if it meant getting beaten to death afterward, they'd die full. "Dream on." Figo laughed, "You're grateful for just a piece of meat? How cheap for the so-called big pirates. But I won't give you any more. What can you do? Who needs your gratitude?" The prisoners' fantasies were shattered and mocked, each of them trembling with anger. "You bastard! If I get out of here, I will." They cursed him viciously, imagining horrific deaths for Figo in their minds. Someone started it, and they threw their empty bowls at Figo. Then, bowls flew everywhere. Figo's smile faded. With a slight movement of his hand at his waist, his new sword, Ruby, flashed out, and with a few quick slashes, shattered all the bowls. "Ha, you bastards have gotten bolder. I'll deal with you later." His mood seemingly disturbed, Figo snorted and walked out of the prisoner's sight. No one spoke this time. They even held their breath. Amidst the pile of shattered bowls lay a key, gleaming faintly. When Figo drew his sword, the key had fallen from his key ring. Most prisoners noticed it. But Figo seemed not to. "What kind of key is this?" Their hearts pounded wildly, eyes fixed on Dohanam, who was closest. Dohanam hadn't felt this kind of tension in years. He glanced at where Figo had left, sensing with observation Haki, and then squeezed to the cell door, desperately reaching for the key. Under everyone's watchful eyes, he slid the key into his cell, grasped it between 2 fingers, and inserted it into the lock of his chains, turning it. Click! The lock opened. Other prisoners' breaths grew heavier. It opened. "Quickly, come over here and free me." "Idiot, hurry up." "Idiots, be quiet." In the hurried whispers, Dohanam used the key to unlock his cell, stepping out into the 5th level corridor, eyes filled with ecstasy and disbelief. "Am I breaking out? Quick! Quick! You idiot!" Another cursed. Dohanam wanted to leave them behind, but he knew he couldn't escape Impel Down alone. "Shut up!" he hissed. "This key has markings, it says 1316, it can probably only open our 4 cells." He looked at a few old neighbors. "I'll let you out, but you have to listen. We'll first kill that bastard Figo, then release everyone and escape together." He was smart, knowing how to placate everyone. Those who had been anxious at his initial words all calmed down. They thought about it and didn't worry about Dohanam breaking his promise. Outside Impel Down was endless sea, without a ship, they couldn't escape without working together. But some were even smarter. Sister Carmel had been quietly observing. Initially ecstatic and hopeful at being treated differently by Figo, she felt sinking when she learned the key could only free 4. "Kill that monster? With just you 4? Her eyes shifted slightly, and she suddenly shouted, "Gaston Figo! You dropped your key! Ah, bastard! Damn it! Are you crazy?" The prisoners were frantic, and Dohanam hastened his movements. The nun wore a disdainful look of clarity amidst the chaos. "Come at me if you dare! Figo! Come back!